For 2 years, Victoria Lang had never noticed the man who fixed everything after midnight. He was just another maintenance worker, invisible, replaceable. Then, in an upscale Chicago restaurant, she saw him. Daniel Brooks sat beneath crystal lights, dressed in a tailored suit, his hand held by a beautiful woman who leaned in as if his words mattered. He smiled, not the quiet, guarded smile from the office, but something warm, alive. Victoria's breath caught. If he belonged somewhere else, what had she been blind to all this time? Victoria Lang had built Northway Dynamics the way a surgeon removes tumors. Ruthlessly, efficiently, without sentiment. At 35, she was the youngest CEO in the company's 40-year history. The board had chosen her not because she was kind, but because she delivered. Quarter after quarter, contract after contract. No excuses. Her corner office on the 23rd floor overlooked Lake Michigan. Most mornings, she arrived before sunrise and watched the city wake up beneath her. She liked the feeling, the distance, the control. People were resources. Emotions were risks. Her assistant knew better than to book meetings before 7. Her CFO, Richard Cole, knew better than to present problems without solutions. Her executive team knew better than to ask about her weekend. Victoria didn't do personal. Somewhere between midnight and dawn, when the building emptied and the cleaning crews finished their rounds, Daniel Brooks kept the machine running. He worked the night shift. Maintenance technician. Third floor mechanical room, mostly. Sometimes the server room when the cooling system acted up. Sometimes the executive floor when something broke and couldn't wait until morning. He wore navy coveralls with his name stitched in white thread above the pocket. He carried a toolbox that looked older than him. He never spoke unless spoken to, which was almost never. The first time Daniel saved the company, nobody knew. It was a Tuesday in January, 3 in the morning. The data center lost power during a freak ice storm. Backup generators failed. Servers hosting client data for 17 major accounts started overheating. The automated alerts went to Thomas Wright, the COO, who was asleep in his suburban home 40 minutes away. By the time he saw them, Daniel had already bypassed the failed relay, rerouted power through the emergency grid, and manually restarted the cooling system. Thomas arrived at 4:30 to find everything running. Daniel was closing his toolbox. "What happened?" Thomas asked. "Relay switch," Daniel said. "Fixed it?" Thomas nodded. He filed a report praising the night maintenance crew in general. Daniel's name didn't appear in it. The second time was worse. The elevator in the executive tower malfunctioned during a late board meeting. 3 directors and the chairman were trapped between floors. The emergency call went out at 9:45. The elevator company said they couldn't send anyone until morning. Victoria was still in her office. She heard the commotion, watched security try the manual release, watched them fail. "Get someone," she said. They called Daniel. He arrived within 20 minutes. Didn't ask questions, just opened the panel, studied the mechanism, and used a combination of leverage and timing that the elevator company later said shouldn't have worked but did. The doors opened. The directors stepped out, shaken but unharmed. Victoria glanced at the man with the toolbox. He had grease on his hands and a quiet focus in his eyes. "Thank you," she said, the way she might thank someone for holding a door. Daniel nodded and left. She never asked his name. The third time came during the biggest pitch of the year. Northway Dynamics was presenting to Kellerman Industries a potential $12 million contract. The presentation was scheduled for 10 in the morning. At 9:40, the projector system failed. It couldn't fix it. The vendor was unreachable. Victoria stood in the conference room, her jaw tight, watching the clock. "Get maintenance," someone said. Daniel walked in carrying a replacement bulb and a stepladder. He swapped out the component, tested the system, and had it running in under 6 minutes. Victoria didn't thank him this time. She was already focused on the presentation. They won the contract. Daniel went back to the mechanical room. He had a daughter. Her name was Lena. She was 7 years old, bright-eyed and curious, and the only reason Daniel worked nights. Daycare ended at 6. The evening shift at Northway Dynamics started at 4. The night shift started at 11 and ended at 7, which meant he could drop Lena at school and pick her up without paying for extended care he couldn't afford. He'd been doing it for 2 years. Since his wife died, the cancer had been fast. Diagnosis to funeral in 8 months. The medical bills had been slower. He was still paying them. Lena didn't know that. She knew her dad fixed things. She knew he worked while she slept. She knew he always picked her up on time. That was enough. Emily Tran, the HR manager, had flagged Daniel's schedule multiple times. Night shift workers were supposed to rotate. It was company policy. Better for health, better for morale, better for coverage. But Daniel kept requesting permanent nights, and Emily kept approving it. She'd met Lena once, during a school event where the company had sponsored a booth. The little girl had held her father's hand and asked if he was the best at fixing things. "He is," Emily had said, and meant it. But she didn't have final say. Richard Cole did. And Richard Cole had started asking questions about Daniel's schedule flexibility. "He's always asking for accommodations," Richard said during a leadership meeting. "What happens when we need him during the day?" Victoria didn't remember the conversation. She'd been reviewing financial projections. "Handle it," she said. Richard made a note. Daniel didn't know his name was on a list. He didn't know someone saw his dedication as a liability. He didn't know that in the world above him, his absence of complaints was mistaken for absence of value. He just kept the systems running, and nobody saw him. Victoria's mother used to say that love was surrender. She'd said it while folding laundry in their cramped apartment, while her husband was out drinking with money they didn't have. She'd said it while covering bruises with makeup. She'd said it while signing divorce papers with shaking hands. Victoria had been 14, she remembered. "Don't be weak," her mother said, years later, when the depression had settled in and the medications didn't work. "Don't need anyone. Don't give them that power." Victoria hadn't. She'd put herself through business school, worked 3 jobs, slept 4 hours a night, built a resume that opened doors, built a reputation that closed deals, built walls that kept everyone at arm's length. The company respected her because she was untouchable. The board trusted her because she was predictable. Her team feared her because she demanded perfection. She didn't need anyone. That was the point. Richard Cole had been with Northway Dynamics for 12 years. He was charming in meetings, ruthless in negotiations, and brilliant with numbers. He told Victoria what she wanted to hear and made problems disappear. She trusted him the way she trusted her financial models. Completely. Without question. He'd been embezzling for 18 months. Small amounts at first. Vendor invoices inflated by 3%. Consulting fees that didn't quite match the contracts. Nothing obvious. Nothing traceable. Until it was. But that discovery was still weeks away. For now, Richard Cole sat across from Victoria's desk and reviewed the quarterly budget. "We need to cut operational costs," he said. "Maintenance is overstaffed." Victoria looked up. "How much overstaffed? We're paying for flexibility we don't use." "Night shift, specifically. Brooks keeps requesting special treatment. It's a precedent issue." Victoria didn't recognize the name. "Is he underperforming?" "No. But he's inflexible. We can hire someone willing to rotate shifts, someone without complications." She signed the memo. It authorized HR to begin evaluating night maintenance staffing levels. Daniel never saw it. Lena had a project due. She was building a model of the water cycle using a plastic bottle, cotton balls, and food coloring. Daniel had stayed up until 2 in the morning, helping her get the condensation effect right. She'd beamed when it worked. "Dad? You're magic," she said. He'd smiled, kissed her forehead, driven her to school, gone to work, exhausted. At 3 in the morning, the HVAC system on the 19th floor started making a grinding noise. Daniel climbed into the ductwork, found a loose mounting bracket, and stabilized it before the vibration could damage the motor. Nobody knew. At 6:45, he clocked out. At 7:15, he was parked outside Lena's school. At 7:30, she climbed into the back seat with her backpack and her water cycle model. Mrs. Patterson loved it, she said. Of course she did, Daniel said. Emily watched the interaction from her car across the parking lot. She was dropping off her own son. She saw the way Daniel's face changed when his daughter appeared, the way his exhaustion fell away. She made a decision. When Richard's memo crossed her desk, she buried it, rewrote the evaluation to show that Daniel was essential, not expendable, sent it back with a recommendation for retention. Richard didn't argue. He just made another note. Victoria didn't think about maintenance workers. She didn't think about childcare. She didn't think about the people who kept her world running while she slept. She thought about growth, about market share, about the investor dinner scheduled for Friday at Aurelia, the kind of restaurant where reservations required 6 weeks' notice and entrees cost more than Daniel made in a day. She thought about power, and power, she'd learned, required distance. Aurelia occupied the top floor of a building in River North, floor-to-ceiling windows, chandeliers that looked like frozen waterfalls, a wine list thicker than most contracts. Victoria arrived at 7. She wore black, simple and severe, the kind of dress that didn't compete for attention because it didn't need to. Her hair was pulled back. Her jewelry was minimal. She looked like someone who owned the room. The investors were already seated. 3 men, 1 woman, all older than Victoria, all worth more than her company. They wanted assurances. They wanted projections. They wanted to see that Northway Dynamics was a safe bet. She gave them what they wanted. The chairman of her board, Gerald Hayes, sat beside her. He laughed at the right moments, toasted at the right moments, did the political work that Victoria couldn't be bothered with. The conversation flowed. Wine was poured. Plates arrived and were cleared, and then Victoria saw him. Daniel Brooks sat 3 tables away beneath one of those frozen chandeliers. He wore a charcoal suit, tailored and clean, nothing like the coveralls she'd seen him in. His tie was dark blue. His posture was different, confident, comfortable. A woman sat across from him. She was striking. Late 30s, auburn hair, sharp cheekbones. She wore a cream dress and held Daniel's hand across the table. She leaned in when he spoke, her expression focused, intent. He smiled at something, she said. Not the quick, guarded smile Victoria might have glimpsed in passing at the office. This smile reached his eyes. It was warm, alive. Victoria's breath caught. Her brain processed 3 thoughts in rapid succession. That's the maintenance worker. He belongs here. Who is she? The third thought came with a twist in her chest that she didn't recognize. Didn't want to recognize. Victoria? Gerald Hayes was looking at her. She blinked, refocused. Solid, she said. Experienced. Proven. The investors nodded. The conversation moved on. But Victoria's attention didn't. She watched Daniel laugh, watched him gesture as he told a story, watched the woman lean closer, her hand still in his. He looked like someone else. Not invisible. Not replaceable. Someone who mattered. The realization felt like a punch. For 2 years, she'd walked past him, looked through him, reduced him to a function, a problem solver, a tool. And here he was, in her world, looking like he'd always belonged. The woman touched his face. He caught her hand, held it gently. Victoria felt something sharp and unfamiliar twist behind her ribs. She excused herself, walked to the restroom, stood in front of the mirror and stared at her own reflection. Her face was composed, controlled, exactly as it always was. But her pulse was racing. She didn't understand. She didn't want to understand. When she returned to the table, Daniel and the woman were gone. Monday morning, Victoria arrived at 6. She pulled Daniel's employee file. Brooks, Daniel. Age 34. Hired 2 years, 3 months ago. Maintenance technician, night shift. Performance reviews, satisfactory. Incident reports, none. Next of kin, Lena Brooks, daughter. No mention of a wife, no mention of a partner. Victoria closed the file. At 8, she called Melissa Ortiz, the PR director, into her office. Melissa had been with the company for 5 years. She was good at managing perception. She was also good at reading people. "What do you know about Daniel Brooks?" Victoria asked. Melissa raised an eyebrow. "Maintenance guy? Night shift? Not much. He keeps to himself." "Why?" "Just doing a review of operational staff," Victoria said. "Has he ever asked for special treatment?" Melissa thought about it. "I've heard he requests certain hours. Family stuff, I think." "Is that a problem?" "It might be. Flexibility is important." Melissa nodded slowly. "I can look into it." Discreetly. "Of course." Melissa left. Victoria stared at her computer screen. She didn't know why it mattered. She didn't know why she cared. But the image of Daniel in that restaurant, smiling at that woman, had lodged itself somewhere deep. 2 days later, Victoria found a reason to go to the mechanical room. She'd never been to the mechanical room. It was on the 3rd floor, tucked behind the server hub. The air was warm and smelled like machine oil. Daniel was crouched beside a junction box, his toolbox open beside him. He looked up when she entered. "Miss Lang," he said. He stood, wiped his hands on a rag. "Brooks." She looked around. "I'm told you're the one who keeps this building running. I do my part. How long have you worked here?" 2 years, a little over." She nodded. "I need someone to handle the HVAC recalibration on floors 12 through 18. It's a priority project. I'll need you available during business hours for the next 2 weeks." Daniel's expression didn't change. "I work nights, ma'am. I'm aware. I'm asking you to adjust. I can't." The words were quiet, firm. Victoria felt something flare in her chest. "Can't or won't? I have a daughter. I pick her up from school. If I work days, I can't do that. Child care exists. I can't afford it." The silence stretched. Victoria heard the hum of machinery, the distant sound of a ventilation fan. She studied Daniel's face. He didn't look angry. He didn't look defiant. He looked tired. "Your job requires flexibility," she said. "I understand. But I need this shift. There are other maintenance workers, so you're not irreplaceable." Something flickered in Daniel's eyes. "No, ma'am. Nobody is." Victoria left. She didn't know why her hands were shaking. Richard Cole was a patient man. He'd been moving money for 18 months. Small amounts, careful amounts. Enough to fund a lifestyle his salary couldn't support, but not enough to trigger audits. The problem was Emily Tran. She'd started asking questions about vendor invoices. Nothing direct, just curiosity. But curiosity was dangerous. Richard needed a distraction, something loud enough to shift focus. Daniel Brooks was perfect. Richard had been watching the way Victoria's behavior had changed. The questions about maintenance schedules, the sudden interest in operational staff, the trip to the mechanical room. He recognized jealousy. He'd seen it before. It made people sloppy. He called Melissa into his office. "I need you to check something for me," he said, quietly. "Daniel Brooks has been leaving the building during his shift. I think he might be meeting someone." "Meeting someone?" Melissa frowned. "Like who?" "I don't know. But if he's using company time for personal business, that's a problem." Melissa hesitated. "Do you have proof? Security footage?" "I just need you to confirm." It was a lie. But Melissa trusted Richard. Everyone did. She pulled the footage. The cameras showed Daniel leaving through the loading dock at 2 in the morning, returning 90 minutes later. It had happened 3 times in the past 2 weeks. Melissa brought it to Richard. "What was he doing?" she asked. "I don't know. But it's inappropriate. Should we report it?" Richard nodded. "To Victoria. She'll want to know." The footage reached Victoria's desk by Thursday afternoon. She watched it 3 times. Daniel leaving the building. Returning later. His expression unreadable. She thought about the woman in the restaurant, the way she'd touched his face. Was he meeting her? Victoria's jaw tightened. Friday morning, Melissa arranged for Victoria to have lunch at a cafe near the office. A casual suggestion, a place with outdoor seating. Victoria arrived at noon. At 12:15, Daniel walked past. The woman from the restaurant was with him. They sat at a table across the street. He ordered coffee. She pulled out a folder. They talked, heads close together, the conversation serious. Victoria couldn't hear them. She could only watch. The woman handed Daniel a document. He read it, his expression tight, nodded, signed something. They left together. Victoria felt cold. Monday morning, she called Daniel into the conference room. Richard Cole was there. So was Thomas Wright. So was Melissa. Daniel walked in, still in his coveralls, and stopped when he saw the setup. "Sit down," Victoria said. He sat. "We have concerns about your conduct," she said. Her voice was steady, controlled. "You've been leaving the premises during your shift. Multiple times, meeting someone." Daniel's face didn't change. "Yes, you admit it." "I do. Care to explain?" He looked at her. Really looked at her. For the first time in 2 years, their eyes met fully. "I can't," he said. "Can't or won't?" "Can't." Richard leaned forward. "Are you aware of the company's confidentiality agreements? The data you have access to?" "I am." "And you don't think it's a problem that you're meeting with someone outside the company, using work time, without disclosure?" Daniel's jaw tightened. "It's not what you think." "Then tell us what it is," Victoria said. "I can't." "Then we have a problem." The silence was heavy. Finally, Daniel stood. "Am I being accused of something?" "We're investigating," Richard said. "Then investigate. But I'm not answering questions without knowing what I'm accused of." He walked out. Victoria watched him go. Her chest felt tight. Daniel didn't sleep that night. Lena asked him what was wrong over breakfast. He said he was tired. She didn't believe him. But she was 7. She didn't push. He dropped her at school, sat in his car, stared at the steering wheel. The job paid $42,000 a year. It came with health insurance, dental, vision, a retirement plan he couldn't contribute to yet, but someday. It was the best job he'd had since his wife died, and it was slipping away. He thought about the folder Sophia Grant had given him, the lawyer who'd contacted him 3 months ago, the investigation into Northway Dynamics' financial irregularities. He'd signed a non-disclosure agreement. He was a witness. He couldn't talk. But now the company thought he was the criminal. At 10 that morning, Emily called him. "Daniel, what the hell is going on?" "I don't know. Richard Cole is saying you're leaking data. That you've been meeting with competitors." "That's not true." "I know it's not true. But they're building a case." Daniel closed his eyes. "I can't fight this." "Yes, you can. I'll help you. Emily, I have a daughter. I can't afford a legal battle. I can't afford to get fired and have it follow me. So what are you going to do?" He didn't answer. Tuesday morning, Daniel submitted his resignation. 2 weeks' notice, effective immediately if they preferred. Thomas Wright called him within an hour. "You don't have to do this," Thomas said. "Yeah, I do. What happened?" "Talk to me." "I can't." "Daniel, I need this job, Tom. But I need my daughter more, and I can't stay somewhere that thinks I'm a thief." He hung up. Victoria found the resignation on her desk at noon. Richard had forwarded it with a note. Problem solved. She stared at the paper. Daniel Brooks, 2 weeks' notice, grateful for the opportunity, regrets any inconvenience. It was formal, polite, empty. She thought about his face in the conference room, the way he'd looked at her. Not angry, just tired. She thought about the way he'd smiled at that woman in the restaurant, the warmth, the life. She thought about the 2 years he'd kept her company running, invisible and unacknowledged, and she felt something crack. That night, Lena asked her father if they were moving. "No, baby, we're not moving." "Then why did you stop working?" Daniel pulled her into his lap. "Sometimes things change, but I'll find something else. I promise." "Will it have insurance?" He froze. "Why are you asking that? I heard you on the phone. You said we needed insurance." He held her tighter. "Don't worry about that. I'll figure it out." But his voice shook. Victoria left the office at 6. She didn't know where she was going until she was already driving. Daniel's address was in his employee file. A neighborhood on the south side. Old buildings, cracked sidewalks, cars that had seen better decades. She parked across the street. Watched. The apartment was on the 2nd floor. Lights on. Curtains drawn, but not completely. She saw movement. Daniel, carrying a plate. Lena, sitting at a small table. They were eating dinner. Just the two of them. Victoria sat in her car and watched. She didn't know what she was doing. Didn't know what she was looking for. But she couldn't leave. At 7:30, someone knocked on Daniel's door. He opened it. Sophia Grant stood in the hallway. Victoria's chest tightened. Sophia stepped inside. Daniel closed the door. Victoria waited. 20 minutes later, Sophia left. Daniel walked her to the stairwell. They stood in the hallway, talking. Victoria couldn't hear them, but she could see their faces. Sophia handed him another folder. Daniel shook his head. She said something. He sighed, nodded. They didn't touch. No hand-holding, no embrace. Sophia left. Daniel stood in the hallway for a long moment. Then went back inside. Victoria's phone buzzed. "Thomas Wright. We need to talk," the message said. "About Daniel." "About Richard." She called him. "What's going on?" she asked. "Not over the phone." "My office. Tomorrow morning. 7. Thomas. Trust me." 7. He hung up. Victoria sat in her car for another hour, watching the light in Daniel's window, watching him move through his small life. She thought about the accusations, the security footage, the meetings. She thought about the resignation, and she thought about the way Richard Cole had smiled when he forwarded it to her. Something didn't fit. The server room alarm triggered at 2 in the morning. There was no one to respond. By 4, the temperature had risen 12 degrees. The backup cooling failed. The system began throttling processes to prevent overheating. By 6, 3 critical applications were offline. By 7, the phones started ringing. Thomas Wright arrived at 7:15. Emily arrived at 7:20. Richard Cole arrived at 7:30, looking oddly composed. Victoria was already in the server room. "What happened?" she asked. "Cooling system malfunction," Thomas said. "The automated failover didn't trigger." "Where's maintenance?" Daniel Brooks was night maintenance. "He's gone." The words hung in the air. "Get someone else," Victoria said. "There is no one else. We cut the overnight position 6 months ago." Daniel was covering 2 shifts. Victoria turned slowly. "What?" Thomas looked at Richard. Richard looked at his phone. "We streamlined operations," Richard said. "It was more efficient." "Efficient?" Thomas's voice rose. "We've been running on 1 technician doing the work of 2, and now we're dead in the water." "We'll call a contractor," Richard said. "Contractors take hours. We have clients expecting service in 90 minutes. Victoria felt cold. "How bad is it?" Kellerman Industries. "Their data pipeline. If we don't restore service by 9, we're in breach of contract. $12 million. The contract she'd won 6 months ago. The account she'd built her quarterly projections around. Get Daniel back, she said. He resigned, Richard said. I don't care. Offer him double, triple. Emily pulled out her phone. Dialed. It rang. And rang. No answer. She tried again. Nothing. Thomas looked at Victoria. He's not coming back. Why not? Because we accused him of being a criminal. The words settled like stones. Victoria looked at the server racks. The blinking error lights, the systems failing one by one. She thought about Daniel in the mechanical room. The junction box. The quiet competence. She thought about the 2 years he'd held this place together. And she thought about the resignation letter. Problem solved. Richard, she said slowly, who initiated the investigation into Daniel? I brought concerns to your attention, he said, based on the evidence. What evidence? Security footage. Meeting with outside parties during work hours. Outside parties, Victoria repeated. Who was he meeting? Richard hesitated. We don't know. You don't know. But you accused him anyway. The pattern was concerning. Thomas was looking at Richard now. Really looking. When did you first notice this pattern? Thomas asked. 2 weeks ago. And when did the vendor invoice discrepancies start? Richard's face went still. What discrepancies? Victoria asked. Thomas pulled out his phone. I was going to talk to you this morning. I've been reviewing the quarterly financials. There are inconsistencies. Small ones. Vendor payments that don't match contracts. It's been going on for months. How many months? 18. Victoria looked at Richard. He was already calculating, already preparing his defense. You're not seriously suggesting I had something to do with vendor payments, Richard said. I'm suggesting we audit everything, Thomas said. And I'm suggesting that Daniel Brooks being accused of misconduct right when someone started asking questions about finances is awfully convenient. The pieces fell into place. Victoria felt her world tilt. Victoria found Daniel at the park. He was pushing Lena on a swing. She was laughing. He was smiling. Victoria walked across the grass. Daniel saw her and went still. Lena noticed, stopped swinging. Who's that, Dad? Someone from work, Daniel said. Victoria stopped a few feet away. Can we talk? I don't work for you anymore. I know. I'm not here as your boss. Then why are you here? She looked at him. At his daughter. At the life she'd almost destroyed without even seeing it. To apologize, she said. Daniel blinked. I was wrong, Victoria said. About everything. And I need your help. I can't. Not with the servers. With Richard Cole. Daniel's expression shifted. What about Richard? He's the one embezzling, isn't he? And you found out. Lena was watching them both, confused. Daniel looked at his daughter. Lena, go play on the slide for a minute, please. She went. Daniel turned back to Victoria. How did you know? I didn't. Until now. He exhaled. Sophia Grant is a federal investigator. She contacted me 3 months ago. They've been building a case against someone at Northway Dynamics. I signed an NDA. I couldn't tell anyone. Not even to defend yourself. Not even then. Victoria felt the weight of it. Richard knew. He used me to push you out. Yeah, I'm sorry. Daniel looked at her for a long time. Why does it matter now? Because I was wrong. Because you didn't deserve what I did. And because I want to make it right. Come to the board meeting tomorrow. Bring Sophia. Let's end this. And if it ruins the company, then it ruins the company. Some things matter more. Daniel studied her face. Looking for something. Finding it, maybe. What time? He asked. The emergency board meeting convened at 10. Victoria sat at the head of the table. Gerald Hayes sat to her right. Richard Cole sat to her left, confident and composed. Thomas Wright sat across from them. Emily Tran sat beside him, and at the far end of the table, Sophia Grant opened her briefcase. This is highly irregular, Gerald said. Victoria, what's going on? We have a problem. Victoria said. "And we need to address it now." Richard leaned forward. "If this is about the server incident, I've already arranged for contractors. It's not about the servers. It's about you." The room went quiet. Sophia stood. "My name is Sophia Grant. I'm a federal investigator specializing in corporate fraud. For the past 8 months, I've been investigating financial irregularities at Northway Dynamics." Gerald's face went pale. "Irregularities? Embezzlement. Over $1.2 million, siphoned through vendor invoices and consulting fees." "That's absurd," Richard said. "If there were irregularities, I would have found them." "You created them," Sophia said. She placed a folder on the table. "These are the invoices in question. All approved by you, all paid to shell companies you control. That's circumstantial. This is your signature." She placed another document. Richard's composure cracked. "You needed a distraction," Sophia continued. "When Emily Tran started asking questions about vendor payments, you needed someone else to take the fall. Daniel Brooks was perfect. Access to company systems. Flexible schedule. Easy to frame. I did no such thing." Thomas placed his own folder on the table. "These are the security logs you doctored. Daniel's badge shows him leaving the building, but the timestamps don't match the camera footage. You edited them." "And the meetings with Miss Grant?" Gerald asked. "Daniel was a witness," Sophia said. "He noticed the discrepancies months ago, reported them anonymously. We contacted him to verify. He cooperated fully under non-disclosure, which is why he couldn't defend himself when accused." The room erupted. Gerald demanded documentation. Richard demanded a lawyer. Thomas demanded Richard's immediate suspension. Victoria sat silent, watching. Finally, Gerald turned to her. "Did you know about this?" "No," she said. "Then how did this meeting happen?" She looked at Daniel, who stood by the door. "Because I finally paid attention to the person I should have seen 2 years ago." Richard was escorted out by security. The board voted to suspend him pending criminal investigation. Sophia closed her briefcase. "We'll need full access to your financial systems. This is going to take time." "Whatever you need," Victoria said. Gerald looked exhausted. "This is a disaster." "Yes," Victoria said. "But it would have been worse if we'd waited." The announcement went out the next day. Richard Cole had been terminated. An investigation was underway. Northway Dynamics was cooperating fully with federal authorities. The stock price dipped. Some clients asked questions. But the company survived. Daniel came back, not as a maintenance technician, as facilities manager. Salary doubled. Day shift. Office on the 4th floor. He brought Lena to work on his first official day. She sat in his office, coloring, while he reviewed the new maintenance schedule. Victoria came to see him at noon. "How's it feel?" she asked. "Strange," he said. "Good, but strange. You earned it." He looked at her. "Did I? Or did you just feel guilty?" "Both," she said. "I'm not going to lie to you, Daniel. I did this because it was right, but also because I was wrong, and I'm trying to fix that. By promoting me, by seeing you." Lena looked up. "Are you the lady who made my dad sad?" Victoria's breath caught. "Yes. Are you going to do it again?" "I'm going to try not to." Lena considered this. Went back to coloring. Daniel smiled slightly. "She's protective. She should be. You're worth protecting." Over the next month, Victoria restructured the company. Maintenance staff were given proper recognition. Performance reviews included input from the people who actually saw the work. Single parents were given flexible scheduling options. Emily was promoted to VP of Operations. Thomas became acting CFO until they found a replacement for Richard. And Victoria learned the names of every person who worked night shift. She met Lena officially, apologized properly, offered to sponsor her school's science fair. Lena accepted. But she made Victoria promise not to make her dad disappear again. Victoria promised. Some evenings, when the building emptied and the city lights flickered on, Victoria found herself walking to Daniel's office. They talked. About work, at first. Then about other things. He told her about his wife. About the cancer. About learning to be both parents. She told him about her mother. About the lessons she'd learned wrong. About the walls she'd built. Neither of them called it therapy. But it felt like healing. One night, 3 months after the board meeting, Daniel invited her to dinner. Not at Aurelia. At a diner near his apartment. Burgers and fries. Lena came too. "This is weird," Lena said, dunking a fry in ketchup. "What is?" Daniel asked. "You and her being friends. Is it bad weird?" Victoria asked. Lena thought about it. "No, just different." "Different can be good," Daniel said. "I guess." They ate, talked, laughed, and for the first time in years, Victoria felt like she was exactly where she belonged. Not above anyone. Not below anyone. Just present, just seen. A few weeks later, the federal investigation concluded. Richard Cole was indicted on 12 counts of fraud and embezzlement. He pleaded guilty. 5 years in prison. The settlement recovered most of the stolen funds. Northway Dynamics paid fines but avoided criminal charges. The board commended Victoria for her handling of the crisis. She didn't feel like a hero. She felt like someone who'd finally learned to pay attention. At the next all-staff meeting, she did something unusual. She told the story. Not the sanitized version. Not the corporate spin. About Daniel. About her blindness. About the systems that made people invisible. "I built this company on efficiency," she said. "But I forgot that efficiency without humanity is just machinery. And machinery breaks." She looked at Daniel, sitting in the 3rd row. Lena beside him. "I'm grateful to the person who held us together when I didn't even see him. And I'm grateful to his daughter, who reminded me that people aren't supposed to disappear." The room was silent. Then someone clapped. Then another. Then everyone. Daniel didn't stand. Didn't wave. Just nodded once. That night, Victoria drove to the south side. Parked across from Daniel's apartment. But this time, she didn't watch from the car. She knocked on the door. Daniel opened it. Lena peered around his leg. "Is everything okay?" he asked. "Yes," Victoria said. "I just wanted to see if you'd like to get coffee. Sometime." No agenda. Just coffee. Daniel smiled. The warm smile. The alive one. "Yeah," he said. "I'd like that." Lena grinned. "Always," Victoria said, and she meant it. 3 months later, the 3 of them were at that diner again. Different booth. Same burgers. Lena was talking about her upcoming science project. Daniel was helping her brainstorm. Victoria was taking notes. "What if we built a model city?" Lena suggested. "With lights and everything?" "That's ambitious," Daniel said. "So?" Lena looked at Victoria. "You said ambitious is good." "I did say that." Then it settled. Lena went back to her fries, satisfied. Daniel looked at Victoria. "You realize she's going to put us both to work, right?" "I'm counting on it." They stayed until the diner closed. Walked out into the cool Chicago night. Lena between them, holding both their hands. No one said the word family, but it was there, in the small moment.